I'm James Dyke. I'm an Associate Professor in Earth System Science and the Assistant Director of the Global Systems Institute, where I lead on education. Much of what my research focuses on could be considered as transition risks. We know we need to radically alter society, and we need to do that very, very quickly, and there's going to be a whole bunch of risks associated with that. We need to move fast enough so that we can decarbonise quickly enough, but in moving so quickly we're going to strand assets, we're going to change societies in ways that might also be problematic. What really inspired me to work in the area of sustainability was my research on astrobiology. So that's a fascinating question for me: is there life elsewhere on the universe? But thinking about what was happening down here on Earth made me realise that, as interesting as that work was, I really had more responsibilities to look at what humans are currently doing to the Earth system right now. I've been particularly interested in some of the narratives around net zero. In particular, this idea that we can undertake large-scale removal of carbon dioxide. I've been quite sceptical about that idea, and quite recently we've seen an awful lot of scepticism around carbon dioxide offsetting. This notion that we can just plant a bunch of trees and somehow zero out the emissions from all the flights we take or other industrial processes has been shown to be actually dangerously misplaced. If you take that on board, then that means we need a radical reassessment of how we think we're going to get to net zero, and that's the kind of work I'm also very interested in. The challenge of climate change is not a challenge of climate science. We've known for years, for decades, what the fundamental scientific challenge is with regards to the ways that humans are impacting the climate. Really, climate justice is what we need to be thinking about, which is how to ensure that all people at all places have a good and decent life. The good news is that given that we have to transform pretty much every aspect of our society, there's an awful lot of work to be done, and that ranges in scale. So you could be working to better understand how an organisation produces emissions, its scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, and how to, get it onto a track towards net zero. At the same time, there's going to be an awful lot of work to do to look at the real deep leverage points in our societies. One of the reasons I do the work that I do is because around 15 years ago, I seriously considered the prospects that humanity was heading towards a potentially catastrophic future. I still actually think that humanity might be heading towards a potentially catastrophic future. There's lots of good news, there's lots of reasons for positivity, but I still think there's also incredible risk. Everything that we can do to minimise that risk, everything that I can do to minimise that risk, I think that's going to be a life well lived.